What is up, guys? Kackis here. Thank you so much for stopping by, and today we have the final part in the absolute grind that is getting your Solstice of Heroes armor set. This video is going to showcase how to masterwork your Solstice armor, get it from the Majestic legendary version to the fully masterworked version as easy as possible. Of course, I've actually done it myself, so we've got a ton of time-saving tips, actually some pretty massive time-saving tips. And so, let's get started. Very quickly, I've already done guides on the green to the blue grind and also the blue to the Majestic grind. Those are linked up above if you are still on that process of your armor. But, on to the Majestic to Masterworked grind. Now, this is super important for anyone who has multiple characters. Like, if you have multiple characters, stop, listen to this. It's actually account-based for a lot of these goals. For example, when I got my Masterwork set for my Warlock, I immediately switched to other classes. I didn't play a second of my Warlock, and when I came back to my Warlock, it had already done 2 of these components. So, stuff like the challenging enemies defeated, you can do that. Once you get Majestic, switch to your other characters and get them their blue and eventually purple sets, and the process of doing so will complete the Masterwork objectives for any characters that you have with this set of armor sitting there. But importantly, this also means that if you have multiple characters sitting there with the Majestic set, you only have to do the Masterwork objectives once. We actually tested this out. We did the 2-man Shattered Throne, and the person I was doing it with actually had 2 characters, both with the Majestic set, and their objective completed for both of them. So if you get all 3 characters to their Masterwork set, and then you do these objectives, you'll only have to do the Masterwork objectives once, and all of your characters will be able to Masterwork their armor sets. That's obviously very important. Alright, now onto the tips about the objectives. So for the somewhat easier ones, the challenging enemies. Now challenging this time actually seems to not just be yellow bar enemies, which is sometimes what challenging refers to. These seems to be almost mini bosses. So if you are at the end of a strike, if you're at the end of a gambit match, those bosses will count towards this challenging enemies defeated. So if you want to farm that part quick, just doing public events is probably your best bet, and then just slaying out on all of the bosses that come in those public events, and potentially the high value targets that randomly appear as well. Especially if you're farming the specific area where the flashpoint is, you're going to have all of those extra flashpoint bosses spawning. Alright, so for the 5 strikes with a clanmate, pretty self-explanatory. However, if you want to pound these out, wait for a day where the modifiers kind of align. The time I'm recording this, it's actually heavyweight and void singe, so we're just using Swarm of the Raven and absolutely decimating enemies, getting this done a lot quicker than we otherwise would. As for resetting your Valor, this may seem self-explanatory, but I again got my Warlock to its Majestic set. I switched characters I did not play, I did not reset my Valor, and yet when it came back, the reset Valor was complete. So potentially just leaving it at the ability to reset it and then doing more Crucible matches, doing bounties, whatever, getting extra Crucible experience will count as a reset. At least it seems to have for me, but of course, this is one of the more annoying objectives. This is going to be something you definitely want to do once you've gotten all of your characters their Majestic set. Just reset your Valor once and then they'll all get it. Alright, now for the more difficult things. Firstly, the 200k plus Nightfall. This actually isn't too difficult if you set your modifiers correctly. So, firstly, you want to have a discrepancy, a power level difference of 210. This is going to put you at parity with the Nightfall when you're doing it. Because your armor set that you just got, the Majestic set, will get you to 750 guaranteed, you can get away with doing this. I should mention, however, and this is very important for this and all the other objectives, frankly, You do not have to have the armor on unless you're doing that specific objective. So when you're doing slightly more complicated things and more difficult things, especially when you're doing like the 200k Nightfall and especially Shattered Throne, yeah, if you're not doing, the 5 strikes with clanmates, take that off, put on better armor, put on an exotic that's going to help your progress and help your lethality and increase your chances of defeating these objectives. In any event, that power level discrepancy is going to give you a huge amount of your modifier. Then you want to put on a burn, and the burn depends on what strike you're doing, and what strike you're doing should be one of the longer strikes. For example, currently I could have picked something like the Lake of Shadows. That's an extremely short strike, so I purposely picked Hallowed Lair. There's a ton of adds there. The boss fight takes forever, but that's what you want. You want as many adds to kill as possible so you can get to that 200k as easily as possible. Lastly, match game. Match game is somewhat annoying at some parts, but if you're with a 3-man group and you all make sure to have a special weapon or an energy primary with different elements, so one guy is the solar guy, one guy is the arc guy, one guy is the void guy, you should be totally fine with match game. And yeah, that's exactly what we did. We did Hallowed Lair and easily got to the over 200,000 point mark. Alright, moving on from there, the most difficult step is going to be the Shattered Throne completion. And this is available for this week. That's why I'm doing this guide. It just became available today. But this week may be the only time it's available before the event goes away. The next reset where the Shattered Throne comes again is August 27th, and that's apparently when this event is going to end. Maybe they'll extend it, but yeah, if you want to get this done, get it done this week. Now, if you have not done the Shattered Throne before, I've done a complete guide on how to do all the encounters, how to get through it. It's linked up above, but as for some 2-man tips, because remember it's only solo or 2-man. If you have 3 people, it will not count. So the loadout is going to matter quite a bit. Now for my primary, I'm using the Outbreak Perfected. It's probably arguably the best primary in the game for damage output. I'm using that in case I don't have heavier special to take down the more powerful enemies. As for my secondary, Loaded Question, recipient of a recent buff and is absolutely phenomenal. Like, it just shreds and is really good at crowd control, which you will need in several parts during this dungeon. And for my heavy, Swarm of the Raven with spike nades and field prep. It's like the best damage output you can possibly get. Now, some alternatives if you don't have the Outbreak Perfected. The Bad Juju I really do like, and that's going to give you your super a lot more, and that's going to be pretty useful as well. Honestly, snipe rifles, there's a couple of parts where snipe rifles actually aren't that bad. In fact, you do want to have something with long-range capabilities, and you do really want to have something that can melt bosses very, very quickly. So if it's not the Swarm of the Raven, honestly, the Wendigo may not be bad. Even just a rocket launcher with cluster bombs should do the trick for the most part. Now, as for your armor, remember this entire thing is against Taken. So if you've done any Last Wish and you have Taken armaments, Taken barrier, any of those mods, you can put those on and have a significant advantage. But if you don't have any of that stuff, remember the entire Shattered Throne takes place in the Dreaming City. So any of the Riven's Curse gear or Transcendent Blessing stuff, mods that you have, you can put on and get that damage bonus in the Dreaming City, and that will count for Shattered Throne as well. And guys, that's really all there is to it. It's just going to be a slightly more difficult version than the normal Shattered Throne because you're down a man. So, I hope you enjoyed this video, found it informative. If you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. If you guys want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickKackis. That's linked in the description down below. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.